Everybody, just before we get started with the webinar, I just want to check that everyone can hear me okay. You've got a questions box down in your control panel for the webinar. If you've got any questions during the webinar, feel free to type in the question box and I'll answer them when I can. Okay, everybody see my screen okay, hopefully. The webinar is being recorded, so it'll be up on our YouTube channel shortly after the webinar, so you'll be able to access that and go back through it later on if you missed anything. Okay. New features, Inventor 2015. So this is the agenda that we're going to be running through today. Apologies to anyone who's been on a webinar before and seen the A2K introduction. I'll go through it again for those that haven't. We'll go through direct modeling inside Inventor. I'll talk about the new learning experience platform inside the application, and then we'll discuss workflow enhancements. I'm going to finish off with a couple of demos centered around the direct modeling and parametric features inside 2015, and questions and answers after that. Like I said though, if you've got any questions as we go, and type them in the question box, and if they can't wait until the end, I'll answer them there and then. Okay, so just a little bit of an introduction about myself. For those that don't know me, my name's Sheldon. I'm a technical consultant here at A2K. I specialise in architecture, mechanical design, animation, presentation. So mainly servicing the architectural and manufacturing industries. A little bit about A2K. We're the largest Autodesk reseller in Australia. We've got approximately 150 staff across Australia, New Zealand and China. We've got a great support network, and we're a platinum partner with Autodesk. We're not limited purely to Autodesk. This is just a snapshot of some of the other vendors that we deal with. We're a HP preferred partner for supplying systems as well. We're also a preferred partner for Adobe and a number of others that you can see there. So our range is quite extensive. It's just a snapshot of the services that we can offer. A lot of people think that we just sell software. That's certainly one part of what we do. We also provide training in all of the products that we sell, consulting, and very comprehensive technical backup as well. Okay, I suppose why you should go with A2K when you're looking at CAD software or any of the other vendors that we deal with. We've got the largest team of resources than any other Autodesk partner across Australia and New Zealand, which means we're highly flexible. Okay, we always continue to innovate our solution offering. We're constantly evaluating to your business as well. We don't just come in and try and fit you into a mold that you might not fit into. We work with you and work out the best solution for your business. And we're dedicated to exceeding your expectations as well. If we can do better, then of course we certainly like to do that where we can. Okay, so let's get into the new features. Direct modeling. There's quite a bit in the direct modeling side of Inventor. That's going to change the game a little bit with how we approach modeling, especially how we approach concept design in the manufacturing industry. Direct modeling incorporates changing parametric design, so it's not just applicable where we don't have access to the native Inventor features for the model, as in imported data from other packages, which we've been able to do for a little while anyway. Not as easily as we can now, but we certainly have been able to do it in the past. But we can also now incorporate that direct editing and direct modeling into our parametric design concepts. So even though we've got native Inventor data, we can mix and match between parametric design and direct editing functionality. Freeform modeling for organic shapes, where traditional feature tools might be a little bit harder to model some of those organic shapes. And I'll take you through a demo on that later. And of course, direct editing, solid geometry. So freeform modeling allows us to easily and quickly model organic shapes, not just for organic shapes. It can be to explore design concepts as well. So when we're in that freeform state, where we're unsure about the geometry, we're unsure about what it's going to look like, etc., and we just want to get some designs out the door and some concepts done. Incorporating freeform and parametric workflows into a single model. So the freeform tools are providing an alternative to our modeling approach, allowing us to explore and create freeform shapes via direct manipulation. So you've probably all seen the direct manipulation functions inside of the existing features in some of the earlier products. It gives you the ability to test your design without committing to anything. Okay, available through the preview modes, etc. So this just takes that idea one step further. Freeform tools are fully flexible and can be used in combination with, as I suggested, parameters that we might already have in place with existing native Inventor features in our model. For example, we can incorporate freeform modeling when the design calls for it. It might be at the beginning of the process, it might be right at the end of the process. At any time of our design process, we can add our freeform modeling tools into our workflow and have our extended parametric features backing onto that or coming before that. Okay, direct editing, not just for freeform objects, but for any existing solid geometry. Whether we've got the native Inventor feature data for that geometry or not, we can certainly use direct editing, again, at any stage of our design process. Okay, so it allows us to easily manipulate native or imported geometry, parametrically move, size, rotate, delete imported solid models, all native Inventor files. Probably one example of where you would possibly use direct editing is to explore design concepts. So not so much in the freeform state where you're not dealing with organic shapes, etc., but you're more just trying to get an idea of what would it look like if I changed this, how would it affect this, is it going to fit, etc. So rather than going through the traditional feature process in Inventor and creating those features and editing existing features, etc., to make those changes, you're kind of committing to your design by doing that. So what the direct editing allows us to do is make those changes, and we can basically stack as many changes or variations to our model inside of one feature that we're not necessarily committing to, and we can go back later and decide whether that editing process needs to be included in our workflow or not, or whether we scrap that design and start again. Okay, so as a concept stage, again, making changes, exploring design options, it's extremely quick and extremely powerful on both imported models and native Inventor files. The learning experience, if you like, has been enhanced in 2015. The standard welcome screen that used to come up when you started the application has been replaced by what we call the personal dashboard, or the Inventor home screen. Okay, so it doesn't open up in a separate dialog box like it used to. It's actually part of your drawing interface. Okay, the good thing about the home screen is that we can personalize it. We're not just limited anymore to what it shows us, creating new files, accessing recent files, etc. We've certainly still got access to all of that information. You can see by the screenshot on the webinar there. We've still got recently used documents, but we've got a more enhanced view of what templates we display at the top and how we're going to go about creating our files. So we don't have to go back through the new dialog box anymore. We can append any custom templates we want into our home screen. We can also pin not only recently used files, but files that we're working on currently, making them easier to find just by going through the list. So we can pin them to our own dashboard and fully customize that. Okay, there's an additional option called Team Web that's been incorporated. It's basically a customizable communication portal for a network in an enclosed environment. It's basically a customized web page, okay, where you can communicate design information, links to projects, etc., between all members of your team in your secure web environment. The inbuilt tutorials have also been enhanced to include what we call a learning path, so you can actually track your progress and see how you're going with your learning now. Nifty little animation there as well to show you where you're at, what you have completed, what you haven't completed, what you might need to go back and revisit, etc., through the inbuilt tutorials. The help section inside the application is now contextual. It's a lot more intuitive than it used to be, and it's going to take you directly to the answers that you're looking for based on where you currently are, what type of file you've got open, what you've got selected, etc. Okay, so it's a lot more streamlined, and it's going to give you a lot more results. And you don't have to go outside of the application to access it. That's probably the best bit. You're not having to log on to the Autodesk help online or anything like that. It's not going to take you outside the application. All of your help references are going to be directed straight onto your screen, right at your fingertips. So everything's in application. There's been quite a few enhancements centered around workflow in the different environments in Inventor. Fairly extensive. We're always trying to make things quicker, make what we do on a daily basis more efficient, etc. And I think 2015 has certainly addressed that in a lot of areas. Large assembly enhancements have been dramatically sped up, speeding the creation, design and documentation of large assemblies, especially in generating views at a fraction of the time with the new Express mode. So Express mode was brought in 2014 to help load large assemblies graphically on the screen. The only issue I would say it had is that if you wanted to do anything with that model, you were limited to what you could do. You could basically zoom in and out, you could pan around, etc. You could have a look at it, but if you wanted to edit anything or look at anything in detail, maybe at a sub-assembly level or a part level, you were then forced to load the model in full, which I think kind of defeated the process a little bit. So they've opened up Express mode a lot in 2015. You can now create components in place at the assembly level while still in Express mode, create sketches, even work geometry, supports edit in place. So while still being in Express mode, I can directly edit in place a sub-assembly or a part without having to load the complete parent assembly. Accessing parts and sub-assemblies, mirroring and patterning components at the top level assembly, still using assembly mode, so I can bring components in and constrain them while still in Express mode. Okay, attaching point clouds for anyone that uses the point cloud functionality, creating assembly sections, and optimizing the loading behavior to be incremental. So I've now got the option to choose when I want the assembly to update and how it updates. Frame generator now supports member reuse, and this is quite a breakthrough for those of you that do large-scale structural assemblies. What the member reuse allows us to do is reuse existing members that we've got, but still allowing those members to be calculated in the bill of materials, but not reusing or incrementing the geometry inside the assembly. So it cuts down on the number of unique parts we've got at the top level assembly. Okay, so that's obviously going to save not only our file size, but it's going to save regeneration. It's going to be a lot quicker. Creating drawings from those are going to be a lot quicker. The change and reuse option allows us to change those reused members, in turn updating any other members that we've reused around our assembly as well. And that's just a snapshot on the screen there of the reuse dialog box and what that looks like. Some general enhancements in assemblies. We can now create work planes either between parallel surfaces or non-parallel surfaces, which is pretty cool. There's also enhancements to the joint commands, including offset origins, selecting virtual midpoints between two planes, regardless of whether those planes are parallel or non-parallel again. And aligning to work geometry, so we can now constrain directly to other work features that we put in at the assembly level. A couple of the general part enhancements. There are a few more than this. I've kind of picked out the best ones. Twisting angle is now incorporated in the sweep feature, and you see the example of, or the result of applying a twist angle to sweep in the image there. Standard tap depth has been set in the thread XLS file for your holes. So regardless of what standard you're creating your holes from, there's a new column called thread depth inside the Excel spreadsheet that sets what the standard tap depth is for those standard hole sizes. So obviously you can go in and change those as you need to, but at least now they've been preset, so you're not leaving that all up to the designer to control. There's also been some enhancements made to the parameter dialog boxes inside the part environment, so we can do things now like purging out parameters that we're not using. So instead of having to trawl through 300 parameters when you've only got half a dozen that you're actually physically using, we can purge those out of the dialog box so we're not seeing them. So all the D values that we haven't renamed that have just been created as part of our feature process, we can clean those up a bit. There's some filtering options in there as well to customize how we're seeing the parameters inside the manager. Sheet metal enhancements, using window selection to place punches on points. That's quite a big one. That's pretty good, that one. You don't have to go through and pick the points individually anymore. We can just drag the window across all of our points and place a punch at each of those locations. It's quite a efficient enhancement there. Cut normal option has been added to the cut dialog box, and I've got an example of that up on the screen there. So you can see the folded S-shaped sheet metal component there. With the hole generated from the top of the part, traditionally the hole would go all the way through the part as if it was drilled straight from the top. Okay. With the cut normal option, it's now normal to the surface that it's going through, which is quite good as well. Enhanced orientation control in the flat pattern environment, so we've now got a lot more control over what position the flat pattern's in on the drawing sheet, etc. It's not just horizontal and vertical anymore. In the browser for the part, sheet metal parts, end of part is now being renamed to end of flat folded. Okay, not a massive issue, but certainly nice to see that it's not written like a normal part file anymore. And the ability to designate the A side for a flat pattern and a punch. Okay, so we can now portray on our drawings a lot clearer which way the flat pattern is actually looking, especially if we're not defining bend annotations and angles, etc. So it takes a bit of that confusion out as well. Drawing enhancements. So there's a new feature in drawing mode called Express Data, which is 4 to 6 times faster than the way 2014 handled the visual information of your views. All drawing views preview as well, whereas it used to only be the base view that previewed in previous versions. And raster view creation has been enhanced a little bit as well. There's also some file open options where we can defer any updates. So that's going to speed up your documentation process because it's not constantly telling you your file's out of date and trying to reload that information. Some of the other documentation functions that have been added there, annotations, double-clicking, used to be fairly specific. If you weren't double-clicking or editing in the right place on the annotation, then it's a little bit clunky. You had to zoom in, make sure you're selecting on the right spot, etc. One example is on balloons. So double-clicking on any part of the balloon annotation is going to allow you to edit that. Moving split tables across multiple sheets. So not just splitting the table on the same sheet, but actually taking that split and putting the split on a separate sheet. Creating drawings with large assemblies is faster. That's part of the Express Data functionality and the enhancements to the speed with that. Creating foreshortened linear, angular and arc length dimensions. So you see an example of that on the screen. And the next one's quite exciting. We've got some parameters now inside the documentation process that allows us to reference back to parent sheets and sheet indexes. So we can now split quite easily details from one assembly across to another sheet and have that cross-reference functionality, which is always tricky to do previously. Okay, so it's going to give you greater flexibility in your documentation, especially of large assemblies. Sketch constraint enhancements. There's a new feature called Relax Mode. You can see it there on the bottom of the graphic interface inside the sketch environment. F11 to turn it on. It's a keyboard shortcut. Basically what the Relax Mode allows us to do is dynamically edit fully constrained sketches. So constraints or sketches that have been fully constrained, dimensioned, geometrically constrained, etc. We've now got the ability to change those dynamically on the fly, which will update all of the parametric features. It doesn't break any of the parametrics in the sketch, so we can maintain even some of our core design dimensions as well. And it basically works on a last in basis, so the last constraint that was placed in on that sketch is the one that is held or maintained. There's a new, let's go to the next slide here, a new constraints setting dialog box that allows us to access everything we need for constraints. So it controls the inference as well as the constraint settings for the icons, etc. And of course the relax mode. Styles drop-down has been enhanced, so when we're doing text inside of our sketches, we've got access to the editing data for that text directly on screen. Creating points at virtual intersection of two sketch elements. So that previously that was always quite an issue, creating sketch geometry, or rather construction geometry to get that intersection value. Okay, we can now create basically an interpreted or inferred intersection between sketches. The Application Manager is a new addition to the 2015 suites, so it'll install automatically as part of the suite setup. Basically, it's going to keep you informed of any updates in any of your products across the suite range. you're not having to go back to the Autodesk website anymore and search through the support page for product-specific service packs or updates or anything like that. It's all delivered right to your desktop through the application manager. So it makes it a lot easier to keep track of. And of course you've got the ability through that to download the updates and install those as you need to. For CAD managers, it can be centrally managed from your Autodesk account portal as well. So the individual users or the end users in your network don't need to have access to that. So it can be controlled centrally by the CAD manager, which is quite a good feature as well. Okay, so at this stage I'm just going to give you a couple of quick demos on the freeform modeling and the direct editing functions. Just give you a bit of an idea of how those work. So I'm just going to swap back into Inventor. Hopefully everyone can see that. Okay, so this is a trailer, and what I want to do is just create a concept design of a freeform type guard that's going to go over the wheels. Okay, so I've started the part here. It's called wheel cover. It's at the bottom of the browser there. Just going to collapse my my webinar controls there so I can see what I'm doing. Hopefully everyone can still see my screen. Okay, I'm just editing this wheel cover. I've placed a couple of planes and a sketch in there already. So I'm now in the part environment for the wheel cover. I've got a new freeform panel in the ribbon there. You'll notice the ribbon is slightly different to the way it used to be. Some of the icons have changed. The sketch icons changed. Some of the heads-up display icons have also changed. Basically, we've got a lot of condensing inside the ribbon. Okay, it's quite easy to get used to. I found it a little bit strange when I first came in here, but once you're used to where everything is, and it's fairly straightforward, it kind of makes sense how they've grouped the commands, and it certainly saves a lot of space. It does make things easier to find, a lot more streamlined as well. You'll notice the sketch tab is permanently active inside the part environment, so I don't have to create new sketch, select the plane and start sketching. I can literally come to the sketch tab, hit create line, and then pick my plane and keep running from there. Okay, so it saves a couple of clicks, and it's a lot more efficient, a lot more streamlined to get into the sketch environment. Okay, so I'm back on the 3D model tab, and we've got a series of fairly standard freeform elements. Now these are actually creating solids, but they edit the same way that a surface modeler would edit. Okay, so they're quite intuitive, very freeform, easily manipulated, and they're a little bit like the old primitives dialog box that we had in the solid editing mode. So I'm going to create 2 cylinders. Just setting my my reference plane and my center point. We'll go with, actually that's probably a bit too big. Let's go 15. We've got 15 inches diameter. I've got the ability to change how many segments as well I want on each face in both height and depth, and how I need that solid to be extruded. So I'm going to extrude that symmetrically there. And I'm going to maintain some symmetry in the Z direction. So that just means if I change something in its height or its depth, etc., that I've got the ability for that change to be reflected on the other side of the solid as well. So I'll create one on that side, we'll put one on the other side here. Let's go, we'll go the same segments on that one. Symmetrical again. Okay, it catches up with me a bit. There we go. Okay, I'm going to join these together. I'm still in the freeform editing mode, so even though I've finished creating those freeforms, I haven't exited the editing mode for the freeform geometry. Okay, so I've got a series of editing tools here that's going to allow me to change dynamically these objects. So one of those options is just to bridge some of these faces together, basically creating a face fillet between the two solids using some face segments. Okay, you'll see the preview there has come up. You can turn the preview off in the dialog box. That actually makes the selection process a little bit quicker, especially where you've got some more complex editing shapes that you need to do. Okay, just apply that there. Might just change my view to a shaded view so we're not seeing the lines. On that, let's go with, could probably finish that edit mode on there. Okay, if I need to go back into it, you can see I've got a freeform feature in the browser. Again, like any other feature, you just double click. I've got access to all of the geometry, the edges, etc. So I'm going to hit edit form on this, and all I'm going to do is select the midpoints of this face. I'm just going to drag it out a little bit. Okay. Based on the way this part was created, you can see the back is also dragging out. So that's the symmetry option that I picked when I created these cylinders. So I'll just accept that. I won't make too many edits there. We could be here all day playing with that. So I'm going to create a sketch on the back face here. And this is just going to represent a trimming reference. Just further defining the shape of my wheel guard. We're going to do an extrude, do it as a surface there. Okay, so you can probably see what I'm about to do. I'm just going to cut the bottom of the wheel guard off. Going to the split tool, trim that back. Okay, probably just turn the visibility of that plane off there. So you can see it's actually a solid geometry, freeform solid. Okay, we're manipulating it the same way that we would manipulate surfaces. Just going to shell this solid out. 3 mil, that'll do. Fairly thin, but that'll be okay. Alright, and combining the freeform shape with standard feature tools like extrude. So the profile I had in there earlier, I'm just going to use as an extrude cut after I've done the shell. Might just tidy this up a little bit. Maybe put soft fillets on the side there. Put one in on this side. Okay, lastly I might just change the colour there. Okay, now if I was using traditional features to do that, That would have taken a little bit longer to do. I probably could have ended up with a similar shape, but it certainly would have been a lot more involved in trying to get that organic form. And then of course you just want to mirror that across to the other side of the assembly. And I'll just turn some of my work planes off. And so that's a fairly basic example of one application for a freeform design. Okay, next I'll have a look at direct editing. So I've got a part here that I don't have any feature information for. You can see it's just coming as a base solid. So this typically would be something imported from maybe SolidWorks or CATIA or something like that. And I now need to make some fairly quick and easy edits to it. Now we could do similar things in this before in previous versions using the repair environment, converting it back to surfaces, etc., and then switching it back to a solid. It was a bit clunky, a bit hard to do. We use probably alias freeform to make some edits, etc. We're now doing it directly inside the model. So I'm in the Modify panel. There's a Direct Edit button there. First thing I'm going to do is let's change the height of these surfaces here. Okay, so I've got direct manipulation. We've also got the option to choose whether I'm going to move the geometry, size the geometry, or rotate it. I'll go through some of the other options there in a minute. So of course I can just drag it dynamically. Okay, I've also got an option to be a bit more specific, and I can measure from existing geometry. So I might just give those an overall height of 40 from this plane. Okay, accepting that. Maybe changing the size of the holes. So just selecting the holes, using the size option. Okay, dynamically changing them, either bigger or smaller, etc. Let's go with 2 there. Okay, maybe pull this face in here. Just -6 on that side. Hopefully what you're noticing is the other attached features that are part of the faces I'm moving are dynamically changing as well, so I'm not losing any of the fillets or the chamfers or anything like that. They're not getting bigger or smaller. I'm not having to select them at all either. So it's simply just directly moving the objects I'm selecting there. Okay, I'm going to change the length of my key and the shaft. We'll move that relative to this face, and we'll make it say 54. Okay, pulling that in. And maybe changing the rotation of the hole pattern that I've got in this block. On the face there. Okay, I'm going to rotate that. You can see my rotation pivot is in the center of the first hole, so that's not going to work. I can very easily redirect where my pivot reference is going to be by simply selecting either edges or faces of other existing geometry. So I'm going to rotate in this direction, -30, that's going to place the alternate location of the holes there. Okay, just accepting that. And maybe going to a left view, changing the overall length of the cylinder. Again, relative to other existing geometry, we'll give it an overall size of, let's say, 140. Okay, so I've made all those changes. You can see in the browser I've got a direct edit feature there. So like any other feature, if I need to make changes to it, I'm just editing it. A good thing about direct editing, especially in the design concept phase, is that I'm not going back through multiple features and destroying relationships or recreating relationships between features to make those changes. The changes are very dynamic, very quick, and they're all included inside of the parent feature, the direct edit. You can see all the operations I've done listed there separately, and graphically on the screen there's a heads up icon for each of those changes. So at any stage I can go back to, so we've got a size for the holes there, or we could go back to the move, just double click the heads up icon and we might change that to 60. Okay, etc. Everything gets updated, and it's all inside of one feature. So I'm not committing to anything at this stage. I'm exploring design concepts. All right. In a different example, I've got an assembly here that's a native Inventor file. Okay, so I do have access to the full feature history. We come down to the muffler mount. You can see it's not aligned with the head of the inlet there. So I can either edit that directly, or we can go back through traditional methods, open the part up, etc., and make our edits from this stage. But I've still got access to the full feature history of that part. Okay, but I can still incorporate some direct editing functions. I'm just going to rotate this back 45 degrees. Again, that's created my direct editing feature that I can go back and manipulate later. I obviously accept that. So come back to my assembly, and of course that's been updated. Lots of applications for direct editing, even simple operations like moving or resizing holes inside of a part file, or across parts, direct editing inside of an assembly level. Okay, so it's going to save the parametric relationships between those edits as well. Right, so it makes our concept design and minor changes it extremely efficient. Okay, that's where I'm going to leave the demo for today. So at this stage, if anyone's got any questions that they want to ask, feel free to ask those. If you've got any inquiries about upgrading or anything like that, certainly get a hold of our sales guys and discuss your options on that as well, with licensing, etc. Any technical inquiries can be directed to our support team, and we'll be able to guide you through that. New features will be incorporated into any training that we do from now on with the 2015 products as well. Okay.